So glad all of you could come. For those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm Stephanie Hagee. I'm the Director of Memorials here, and I can't thank Roger enough for bringing me into his early bird family so that we could start this. And I have to tell you that this all started with two gentlemen knocking on my office door with a bet. They had been going across the wall of plaques, and there was an empty spot. And Roger said, "Oh, somebody stole it, it's missing." My dad, General Hagee, said, No, it's being saved." Luckily, thank goodness, they were both right. There used to be a plaque up there, and it was taken down. And it was saved for somebody else, so I didn't have to pick and choose of who was correct, because who do you pick? General Hagee, my dad, or Roger Winter, you know? So I'd like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if everybody can stand. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here today we're here to honor our heroes. And heroes is a term that's used very loosely nowadays. Heroes, you hear that with basketball players or actors or actresses, but those aren't the true heroes. The true heroes are all these gentlemen and women here on these plaques who fought so valiantly for our country. And of course, the biggest hero of my life, who I want to introduce now, is my dad, General Hagee.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, but just a little guidance. If it's between me and Roger, there's no choice. I win. I would like to welcome everyone here to this really quite historic event. I know without a doubt this is the first time that we have done 16 plaque dedications at the same time. So you're part of something special here in a place, at least in my opinion, that is also really quite special. We have hundreds of plaques dedicated to men and women and ships and units recognizing their service during World War II. And in fact, I think we have a couple of World War II veterans here. If you all could stand up, please, those of you who served so great in World War II. You know, we call them the greatest generation, and I've talked with quite a few of them, and they said, "Oh no, we're not the greatest generation. The young men and women who are on the battlefield today are doing just as well as we did." That's a true statement. But I still believe that they are the greatest generation. Not only did they go forward from every place in the United States, every profession that we have here, they stepped forward. Some of them lied about their age, as you know. And they stepped forward to serve this country when we faced the greatest existential threat to us in the 20th century. And not only were they successful in that effort, but they came back and they built this society that we have today. No other generation, in my opinion, has done that. And that makes them the greatest generation. I like to come to the memorial courtyard here early in the morning, sometimes before it opens, and we close the gates at 5 o'clock. I like to come out here at 5 o'clock because it's almost a mysterious place. You look around and you see these plaques and these faces, and I challenge anyone here, go up, touch that limestone, touch that plaque, and send me an email that you were here all by yourself, because I surely don't feel like I'm here all by myself. There's a plaque back over here in the main courtyard to the Sanchez family. 8 brothers from New Braunfels who served. One of them MIA, never came back. There's another plaque over here on wall 4, Lieutenant John T. Walker. I stand there and look at his plaque and did a little research on him. In 1938, he got on his Harley Davidson in Colorado Springs, California, and drove to the Naval Academy. He graduated 4 years later in 1942. Then on the 25th of November, 1945, on board the USS Cobham, as a gunnery officer, his gun shot down 3 kamikazes as they were attacking the aircraft. The 4th one they did not shoot down, and it impacted his gun turret and killed him there. You look at him, you feel that plaque, you feel the pride, the joy that he had, and also the fear. I've been privileged to serve in our armed forces for 40-some years before I retired. And I look at these plaques and I think about what the young men and women do today, and we ask them to do really quite unbelievable things, and they perform exceptionally. Like the individuals from World War II, like Lieutenant Walker, they don't want to die, but they are willing to. They are willing to give up everything that we hold dear. Now, their life, family, children, relatives, they freely give it up. And that has always amazed me. And I thought a great deal about why they do it. I think there are essentially 2 reasons. One, for any of you who have served, you know it's because of the guy on the right and the guy on the left. But I think a second reason they do it is they believe in something larger than themselves. That's something that money cannot buy. And that's something that we can never lose. And my sense is, as long as we have walls like this, plaques like this, and individuals coming together to honor what these young men and women did, I don't think we will. So with that, I would like to ask Roger and Stephanie to unveil the plaques. And if you want to stand, I'm sure you can. If
open the floor for some people who can speak about their veteran that was in their family or the veterans themselves. And we'd like to start out with Charlotte. Where are you? Who kind of, her dad didn't make it back from the war, but her relationship with Roger and Roger's wife is kind of what started this whole thing. So, Charlotte.
I think I'm going to get a plaque for my dad. He was shot down over the Pacific on May 24th, and nothing can touch me. And that's what all started. And Roger immediately. So when was he born? Well, I'm not real sure, Roger. Well, question after question. And about 2 weeks later, I get this note from Roger, and he says, can you call me, but be sure and be seated. And that was a day that actually started today, as I understand it. As Roger went to work with General Hagee, and they found out things that I never knew and didn't know that I wanted to know. But certainly today, it changed my life. And as General Hagee talked about the greatest generation, I had always heard about them, I'd read about them, I've met a few. I'm always touched by the things people say about this generation. Their humility, they're saying, we're not the greatest generation, just everything about them. And I was lucky enough to know one of those, and that was Jack Bruton. Lynn McKinney is here with me today, and her father really became my second father, and he was just like that. He was humble, and he was a sweetheart, and stricter than the devil. I tell you, he was as tough on me as if he'd been my own. But it made me realize when Roger told the story of my father that I was very fortunate and lucky to have learned about this, even though I didn't know I wanted to know. And as I was growing up, my relatives, my father's family lived in Boston, and I was the Texas girl, so I didn't see them often, and they died young. But they would always say things like, your father was so smart, and he was so sweet, and he was so courageous. And when you hear those things, you think, well, of course they're going to say that. He's gone, and they want you to think that. But when Roger told me the story that he was courageous and that he had the opportunity to actually make a choice to die for his country, that made a real difference to me. I don't know about you, but throughout my life I've always thought, gee, I hope I would have the courage to have that and to make that decision if I was forced to make it for a family member, my country, a friend. But, do you really know? And I can put my head down on my pillow at night, and I know that my father made that decision, which certainly instills a certain faith and a certain pride that somebody from your family did that. I will say that family is an extraordinary thing in my family. Is Roger and his wife Cheryl, we've been friends forever, as have Lynn and Keith had, and their family are my family, and I would like to think that I would make that decision for them. But thanks to Roger, it makes me feel, and his research, it makes me feel like, even though I never had the privilege of spending that time with him, that he died for the right reasons, and that gave us this country that we have today. We have such an amazing country, and so often I feel like I meet people that don't have any idea how wonderful this country is, and it's really a very heartwarming thing to realize that these people are out there, and they're over there now doing that for all of us. And I would just say, when you can choose your own family, which I have, and then you can learn about one that was chosen for you, it's a very rare gift, and I thank you for allowing me to share that story.
Stuart Morris would like to say a few words.
To stand before you, a little bit embarrassing to me. Never had a general sitting down. Always standing up. I mean, I was always sitting down, scared to death of it. But I come here today to salute the general and all you that have established and made this possible and continue to work it. Unfortunately, I was in the Navy. I never got, the unfortunate part was I never got any shore duty. I got out of midshipman school and I had 2 weeks to get on board LST 38, which I got off of 2 years later. I had the pleasure of being based in Honolulu. Therefore, I wear this shirt. Interesting to listen to the general talk. I changed my speech 3 times now since I gave it to you at lunch. Mentioned kamikazes. I want to tell you all, it is really exciting when you got a torpedo bomber coming in, and all your men are shooting everything they got. 50 caliber. 20 millimeters, 40 millimeters, 3-inch cannon, and that pilot was just as safe as he could be, as long as we shooting at him. When he dropped that torpedo bomb, what a way! In that flagpole, this is the change #1 in my speech. Kamikazes, they do make life interesting. I had the privilege of serving my 3 best school buddies never came back. I don't know why the Lord let me come back, but I've had a wonderful life, far more than I deserved. They didn't, when I went on board, I did all that new brass on me. I was brand new midshipman. And they wouldn't have anything for me to do that. An engineering officer, flag officer, that, radio, that. So they all ignored me. This isn't in a speech. But I realized I was getting on a brand new ship that was dirty from end to end. And so, being as I was an officer, I just started cleaning up the place. I got on the PA system and told them, no more soaking clothes on the fan deck. Put your clothes there in that bucket when I get up in the morning. They're going overboard. We wound up with a clean ship. It was really fun being on board my ship. Interesting. We were based out of Honolulu. We started out with San Diego, got to Honolulu. First invasion was in Kauai. By the way, it is interesting to see those battleships laying about 15 miles offshore, and you laying on about 1 mile offshore, and then shooting those 2,000-pound projectiles overhead. They used to have a saying, each one of them took 6 silk sacks of gunpowder to throw that 2,000-pound projectile in the guns. And every so often they'd have a tracer. You could see them kind of coming, and you could see them going, and you always wondered, just hope that boy had enough sense to count up to 6. We had an interesting time on board. I wound up kind of running the ship as an executive officer. And I know this isn't in my allocated time, but I just held church services every Sunday. PA system. Now hear this. It's church services. Smoking lamps out. We were headed for an invasion. Something like a ship. No sailors. Rain. Whatever we had on board, we had no problem with them. We read the scriptures. You get up and talk. We didn't have any songbooks. Real interesting, you know. After we won a battle, heading back for Honolulu. All right, now hear this. Church services. 4 or 5. I'm telling you, that's the way life works. No atheists in foxholes. Tremendous experiences I had. I hold 5 diplomas, 5 different universities. But I'm not more proud of anything than my ability to answer the call. I can't really say I was a draft dodger. I didn't get drafted as long as you were in college pursuing and you had good grades. And I graduated from 2 different universities at the same time, SMU School of Law and University of Texas, PA. And I got both degrees at the same time because in the next 2 weeks I went into service. I do remember 1943 well. 43 was the year I graduated from 2 universities. 43 was the year I bought a marriage certificate. 43 was the year I got married. 43 was the year I was out of Columbia University. 43 was the year I was on the way to Kwajalein, scared to death. What a wonderful thing. I'm personally a Democrat. I don't vote that way anymore, but do pray for the President of the United States every day. The Lord used Pharaoh to persecute the Jews, but he had a purpose. I don't understand the ways of the Lord, and I don't understand the ways of the present administration. But we're in the greatest nation of all time. When you mention the name of Admiral Nimitz, I think this following is a true statement. Some of these have already made, some of them are true. But one thing I think is true, Admiral Nimitz is head of the strongest, most powerful fleet in the history of the world, past, present, and future. Never aboard. And they from upstate, we'll be fighting from the air. We won't be fighting on the water. What a tribute it is to call this the Nimitz. The Nimitz. Also very grateful to MacArthur, for me. And then we'll hit the island, the Wewak. Wewak had 50,000 Japs on it. It was right in the line after Kwajalein, and we went to New Guinea. Boy, was right the next one to be hit. 50,000 Japs on that one island. So MacArthur, he just left them on that that island, hit the next island, hit the island this way, cut off all passage, starve them out. Fond memories I have. Thank you all for preserving this. Generations to come. We're the greatest nation in the history of man. We all got to do our part to keep it strong and all the simple. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, so much for sharing your stories with us and your service. If I could have Bruce Nichols.
My name is Bruce Nichols. My father, Thomas Vernon Nichols Jr., served in the Navy in World War II. He graduated from Ole Miss in 1941. And then he was a midshipman at the University of Notre Dame. He was a 90-day wonder. He got a commission at Notre Dame in 42. Then he went to Rockport, Texas, as executive officer of a PC 1167, which was a patrol craft. Commissioned that ship at the shipyard in Rockport. Served in the Mediterranean campaigns of Italy and Sicily in 1943 and early 1944. He then became commanding officer as a Navy lieutenant of the sub-chaser SC-1044. These have really neat names, they're just the numbers. It was a 120 or 30-foot long wooden hull submarine chaser. About a crew of about 30. He sailed into the Pacific and was in the Pacific campaigns throughout the second half of 44 and all of 45. Unfortunately, he was not injured nor was his ship hit anytime during that time period. The biggest hazard being a typhoon that they survived after the war was over in the fall of 45 over in the Philippine Sea. We got back home intact. He and my mother, Sarah Nichols, were married for 58 years, and my dad died in 2000. My mother's 94 and still alive, so she's very, very excited to know that my dad is being honored. I just want to thank Roger Winter and everybody who put this on. It's a tremendous honor for me, and I thank you very much.
John Settle. Oh, you were prepared. I had you down. We can keep it short and sweet, thanks.
Thank you, Roger Winter, by the way.
Very good. Thank you for keeping within your time limit.
I'll say 3 words.
Okay.
It was my father, John Davidson, and he was 27 when the war started, 41. Had been married for about a year and a half, and had a baby girl. He lived long enough to know to rear his 3 children and know his 3 grandchildren. Right. If he didn't get to know these great grandchildren, he would have been so proud of them as I am.
And we have one plaque here today that wasn't originally part of Roger's group, but we're happy to have him join us. And Ann Whitty, if you want to say a few words.
I didn't know this morning when I woke up that I was going to be doing this, but I would like to tell you a story about my uncle, Woodrow Wilson McCroy. His plaque is right over there on the end, on the second row. It was just unveiled. Wilson was very close to my mother. He was less than a year younger than she was, and so they were very, very close. So I heard a lot about him from my mother. Wilson was from Welder, Texas. I'm not seeing a lot of people who think they know about Welder. Welder is minute. But Wilson had a lot of spark, a lot of determination. He wanted an education. He was told that if he could go to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, he wouldn't have to pay for it. But he would need to serve in the Navy. That was fine with him. So he wrote to the Naval Academy and told them he'd really like to go to school there. And the reply was, well, you have to be recommended by a congressman, and all the spots from Texas are taken. Most people would have stopped right there and accepted that. Wilson went to the little post office in Welder and got a list of all the congressmen in the United States and wrote letters to every single one. Sure enough, North Carolina still had a spot, and that was offered to him. He took it. The United States government would pay his way at Christmas and in the summers to go to North Carolina, but not to Texas. That's the way it worked. And this is Depression time. Money is hard to come by. Wilson stuck it out. A solid 4 years. He couldn't leave. But he did very well in school. And he did very well with his naval career. And I'm going to throw this in too because I think it's interesting. I had a good friend who graduated from high school with me who went on, and I'm from Victoria, but my friend who graduated from high school with me went on to become an oral surgeon in the Navy. And he was stationed in Korea. And one time I happened to be at my parents' house in Victoria. He didn't know that. But he was home. He was in Victoria, and he wanted to come tell my mother how much he thought of her brother, who was Wilson McCrory. And he said that there was a quality to Wilson that was just what the young men in the Navy who were a long way from home and who were missing the guidance of their families. Some of them were doing some things they might not ought to do. And Wilson was the kind of personality, the kind of example that he led by example. And he was very upright, and he helped a lot of young men. And that's what my oral surgeon, the young man who was the oral surgeon under him, wanted to come tell my mother. But I got to hear it too because I happened to be there. So that just says something about some of the people who do dedicate their lives to protecting us.
Sir?
My name's Reagan Jordan. I live in Willow City, near here, and across the road from Roger. This is good news. I wanted to speak with regard to David Brayton, who you'll find a plaque for. And he's a colleague of mine as an architect, but he's 92 years old, so he's a little bit ahead of me. If you wanted to fly in a B-29, you wanted to fly in a B-29, you would want David Brayton to go with you. And there are two reasons. One is he was a card. He was a person full of jokes and a person full of understanding how those jokes make life good. The other was he was a bombardier and a navigator. That's the reason you would really want him to go and night with you. And he says about that, for a navigator, this was the ultimate plum assignment. In those days when you fly 3,000 miles, combat missions over open ocean, many involving long hours at night, with only the stars to guide you. The navigator, unlike Rodney Dangerfield, gets respect.
Rear Admiral. I'm a steward. And this was a steward. He's a steward Morris, and I made him a steward. It was unique because he served on the LST 38, and I served on the DE 38, which is, yeah, every ship in the Navy had its purpose. And the DE and the destroyer were designed for any submarine work and control work, convoy work with the fleet. And that was our main purpose. We served with the fleet on several different occasions. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, Lady, and our ship was very proud that in that 2.5-year service, we never lost another ship to the Japanese submarine. In fact, in the typhoon off Okinawa, the heavy cruiser Pittsburgh lost her bow, 100 feet of her bow broke off. Just her escorts escorted her back to Guam, so she was safe. The Indianapolis was sailed to Tinian with parts of the atomic bomb, and she belonged to Guam, and the Indianapolis was a heavy cruiser. She was assigned to sail to Guam, the Lady, unescorted, and she was hit with two torpedoes from the I-58 Japanese destroyer, and it sunk in 12 minutes. The loss of about 800 men. She carried almost 1,200 men. There were only 300 men saved from the Indianapolis. So it was very, very important that escort work continued with the fleet day in and day out.
I didn't know if I was going to say something, but I do want to. My father's wife, Willis Puffer, the junior. I'm the third, by the way. And he's just another piece of the puzzle that fit in with the destroyers. My father flew the flying boats. He was a PBY and PBMs. The more I found out about it, the more I found out he didn't tell me how. I thought he had been here and there, but he was there at Midway when the bombing. And it was part of his particular plane, or the squadron that found the fleet, the Japanese fleet. And from there, he went to serve down near Noumea, Caledonia, and all through the Solomons, and kind of worked his way up. In the latter part of the war, he was in took a 2-month break in his aviation role. That's because he went back home and visited his family. He had a very hard life growing up. And he spoke very proudly. He was very proud of his service to his country. Every picture I saw of him with his men, he was always smiling. You can see all 32 teeth. He enjoyed his men. His job as an aviation machinist mechanic first class. He took care of the fleet. He was in charge of the mechanic. Many times the captain would ask him to be the captain of the crew too. So he came back with the PBMs, the big ones, and they were like a floating B-17. A lot of armor on, and they were mainly for search and rescue. And he served in a lot of the campaigns. Mr. Stewart was at Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and the Ryukyu Islands, which are south of Japan. And that's where he received most of his awards, his medals. He was always proud of his service. And I wish he had spoken about it even more, because he went through an awful lot, but it was like they say, there was a line from the movie called Flags of Our Fathers. Fight for your country, but you die for your friends. And I thank you for this greatest generation. All of you out there that fought, thank you so much, because we are your legacy. And you left us to a better life, for us to be able to live free. And we need to get the word to more people that freedom isn't cheap. as my grandfather and my father-in-law said, he didn't quite make it to the war. He was getting ready to take off the B-29s and the Guadalupe bombs. And he said that was the last war we won. He was proud of that. We finalized that and we won the freedom that we enjoy today. And I thank you so much for everybody here that represents this museum. Thank you to the Indians for bringing my father to their attention. And I thank you for everybody here that's honored up on this wall. You deserve to be honored. I'm so thankful for all of your service.
First, I'd just like to say, Mr. Morris, I had the honor and privilege of serving at Houston Baptist University with you, and it was a real treat to see you here in Fredericksburg. Thank you for what you've done in many ways. Thank you, General, and obviously thank you, Roger. I'd like to just thank Stephanie. I wouldn't be here if Stephanie hadn't done all the work, and you are a jewel, and thank you so much for what you've done. I'm here to represent my father, Dave Williams. He served in the Pacific. He was a mechanic. It was a tough job, but that was his job, and that's what he did. But you know, it's just a special time, I think, for all of us to be here. And mostly, I just want to say thanks to Roger. You're a blessing to us all. We wouldn't be here without you, so thank you, Roger.
And my dad was John Montgomery Grammer, and I praise the Lord every day that he was. He was not in the Navy, but he was in the United States Army. He was in the 1st Division, Company C, in the 83rd Infantry. The story I'd like to share is when he was over in Germany, there had been a fight, and everybody was kind of laying still when the Germans came through, and he said that was the first time he was ever held his breath that long, so that they would think he was dead. They went through, they took everything that everybody had on him. Well, my grandfather had given him a lighter, which they took. A year later, he was back in Germany, and they had captured all these Germans, and they were going through getting all their things. And the German that he had to, I won't say frisk, but whatever he did, he got his lighter. The German had his lighter, and he was able to get that lighter back, and he had it until he died. He did give it to the Honorable Mike and Rosie Moncrief, who made this such a honor to do this for my dad. And I just want you to know that my dad was not only a loving father, husband, and friend, he was my best friend. And thank you so very much, and God bless everyone, and God bless America.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Clark. My father is being honored tomorrow because my daughter and her husband are coming over from College Station and couldn't make it tonight. So I'm going to, I did want to say a couple of words because I'm not real sure anybody's going to be here other than immediate family tomorrow. I'm one of those fortunate individuals that had a father who not only was a father, he was a hero. He was a role model. He was a confidant. Later, when I was in the Air Force, he was a colleague. He helped me through flight school, and then later in life, he became my best friend. My father came from Savannah. He and his brother were in the Georgia National Guard in the artillery. He had a baseball scholarship to Georgia Tech when the war broke out. They obviously activated his unit, and he worked his way into pilot training. He was one of the first flying sergeants. Ended up in a B-25, and on his 20th birthday, he was headed to the Pacific. The unit he was with was called the 345th Bomb Squad, 5th Air Force. And the plaque that Stephanie helped me design and make not only honors him, but it honors the heroes of the 345th Bomb Group, the Air Apaches. They were the first air unit to be activated. They fought all the way from the beginning up through preparing for the invasion of Japan. The B-25 was generally was built as a medium-range bomber. They converted these aircraft into strafers, minimum altitude bombers. They had 8 50 caliber guns in the nose. They had two packs on the side, and then they moved the turret forward. And so when they came in at low level over the treetops, they had 16 guns. All right, attacking everything from airfields to naval vessels to enemy encampments, you name it. They were a very distinguished unit. There was a book written called Band of Brothers by an individual from Texas named Pepe Blunt, which is just a fantastic story of the 345th. And my dad, I'm so proud that my dad was one of those individuals that participated and served in that unit. Later, Dad came back home, went to Myrtle Beach. He met my mother. He was a flight instructor there, and then he and his best friend volunteered to go back out into the Pacific as squadron commanders. And they were preparing for the launch for the invasion of Japan when we dropped the bomb, and they, of course, came home. He got married. He made the Air Force a career. He did what everybody else in the Greatest Generation did. He put the war behind him. He got on building an excellent Air Force. He became a wonderful father. He participated in everything we did as children. He was a member of the church. He was very devoted, and I just can't say enough about my father. I was very proud of him. We buried him in Arlington a year ago in January. So if you're here tomorrow, I would ask you to come by. That railing right there is where we'll be honoring my dad and the 345th Bomb Squad. Thank you.
I just want to say really quick that my grandfather has a plaque right over there, and he was actually, he has since passed, but he was actually alive when we dedicated his plaque, and his words were, "I'll now forever be with my guys." So, and with that, we'd like to, we have a little change in the program. We're going to do the benediction, but Roger, Ed has kind of passed on that, and he would rather you do it. He made me do it. He's going to come up too. He just wanted to do the goal.
So, not all of you know this, but last year we had what could have been a really tough year, but something happened in our family, and I lost a daughter. And to summarize it, it was the most life-affirming experience I've ever gone through. And part of it, great part of it, this man right here, and the faith that he brought me, and it's just been a wonderful experience to be with you for all these years, and especially to have you step up when people needed to step up, and a lot of people did. A lot of people in this tent stepped up, and they were there, and you were there the entire time. And yeah, so are you there? All right, I will be glad to stand with you always.
May I ask you all to rise, please? Bow your heads and share this moment of prayer.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, what an amazing time. I can't believe we get to share this. Not only to stand in this place where these stories surround us, museums that depict these struggles and the men and the women that rose to those occasions, then to hear, Father, firsthand accounts from sons and daughters, and then these two fine men that served our country. Father God, thank you for every bit of this. This time together, this opportunity to honor them and also to honor those that are still here among us. Father, clearly as you have touched our hearts with their stories, now, Father, just open our hearts to you. For the legacy they left us is a legacy of freedom and a legacy of worship. Father, may we turn to you now. Thank you for all that is in our lives, our families, our children, and the generations that go before us. We thank you also, Father, for this time and all we have shared with you. In Jesus' holy name. Amen. We have a reception about 100 steps that way.
Lucia, did you find
And
it?
thank you all for showing up today and participation. There's so many stories in this room, in this tent, and great, wonderful, wonderful stories. And thank you so much.